Why were there so many wars in ancient China? After King Zhou Ping moved his capital, the most exciting era of the Spring and Autumn period and the Warring States period began. This was an era of great intellectual explosion. Due to the decline of the Zhou Dynasty, the various lords were no longer restrained by the royal court. They had power, land, and armies. The era of the central government was over, and a new era had begun. The balance was broken, and wars began. The weaker lords wanted to expand their territories and strengthen their power, while the stronger lords wanted more land and armies. Every lord was developing their military power, because with war comes the need to survive, and to survive, one must develop. In this era, wars can be categorized, which greatly helps us understand the story that follows. Here are some common forms of war, with some special ones not mentioned. Wars can be classified by the number of sides involved. When a country goes to war with itself, it is called a civil war. Civil wars can also be categorized, such as when a father and son go to war. In most cases, this is due to the lure of power. In the Zhou Dynasty, some kings had very long lifespans, with a few even surpassing 100 years. Since the king was so old, by the time the crown prince ascended the throne, he was already 50 years old. In some countries, the crown prince couldn't even outlive his father and died before him. After the king's death, the throne was taken by the grandson. Therefore, some sons would go to war with their fathers, hoping to ascend to the throne earlier. Then there's the war of mothers and sons. During the Zhou Dynasty, everyone was very good at having children. Legend has it that when the Zhou Dynasty was first established, King Wen of Zhou had 100 sons. As each son needed to be granted land, hundreds of vassal states were created. There are so many sons, but there is only one throne, and the mother will definitely have a son she likes, so the mother goes to war with the other sons. Next, there was a war between brothers. As previously mentioned, the father had many sons, and they often didn't get along. If the eldest son died, the throne would pass to the second eldest. Thus, war broke out among the brothers over who would be the next king. Lastly, there were power struggles among the court officials. This often happened in countries where the crown prince became king at a young age, and the state affairs needed to be managed by the court officials. At this time, the court officials would develop their own territories and even surpass the king's territory. They would then force the king to abdicate or even kill the king and declare themselves as the new king. A war between one country and one country, this was a common form of war, as most conflicts were either due to territorial disputes or disagreements. Sometimes, the root cause of the conflict was simply due to the previous generation having too many offspring, leading to a struggle for the throne. In such cases, the victor would claim the throne, while the defeated would be forced to flee to other countries seeking political asylum. Some countries would even offer shelter and assistance to these refugees, helping them to seize power in their own countries. This often led to further wars, as these friendly nations would become entangled in the conflicts of their allies. Sometimes, wars would occur without any clear reason, with one country simply deciding to invade another. In such cases, weaker nations would often be absorbed by their more powerful neighbors, without any justification or warning. In some instances, a single country would find itself under attack by multiple nations. This was often the case when a nominal leader, like the Zhou king, decided to go to war. In such situations, many countries would simultaneously launch their own attacks. There were also alliances, similar to NATO and the USSR, where a powerful leader would unite many friendly nations, who would band together to fight their enemies. There are also situations where one country attacks multiple countries. This was a rare occurrence as it required a very strong national power to simultaneously wage war against several countries. During the Warring States period, the state of Qin was known to engage in such behavior. However, weaker nations needed to unite to protect themselves, so the stronger party not only attacked weaker nations but also targeted other countries to prevent them from providing assistance. There were also wars between multiple countries and multiple countries, which was similar to a world war. Many countries had hostile relationships, but there were also many friendly ones. In some cases, the ministers or kings of one country were related to the kings of another, making it more likely that they would come to each other's aid. However, relationships during the spring and autumn period were very fragile, and even fathers and sons, mothers and sons would engage in warfare, making even family ties unreliable. It was common to see countries with familial ties collapse during war. The last type of war was fought for women, or rather, wars sparked by women. In these wars, the opposing sides had no grudges against each other, but still, war broke out. During the reign of King Yu of Zhou, the war between the Zhou Dynasty and the Qianrong was sparked because King Yu wanted to see Lady Bao smile, leading to the indirect destruction of the Zhou Dynasty, and the beginning of the spring and autumn period. Wars caused by women were also very common during this period.